my name is Emma, and today I'm talking about Shadowhunters episode 6. Though you could probably assume, because that's all I have time to film, and you're probably sick of me talking about Shadowhunters already, because I know I'm sick of me talking about Shadowhunters already. I feel that the idea of this episode was really needed because we had zero explanations for anything up until this point, but I think they did the episode really poorly. I think had they done little information explanation bits throughout the first 5 episodes, this episode would have been much better, even if it still held the majority of the information that we need to continue on with this series. They kind of made an entire episode out of the chapter in City of Bones, The Werewolf's Tale, and while I feel the pacing in that chapter was really good because, you know, you read it in 15 minutes, I think they did a really bad job by expanding it into 42 minutes. The whole episode just felt very disconnected. Like, I probably would have liked it a lot more had they just done the whole episode as like a continuous flashback where like they had real-time Shadowhunters at the beginning and the end, and the whole middle of the episode was just like the circle and the uprising and everything around it. I think that would have explained everything so much better than the way they did it. They also messed up a lot of the explanations, and I don't think that Freeform realizes how important these little details are to the entire plot of the story. I had decent expectations going into this episode because episode 4 and 5 were pretty good, and so I'm like, oh, like it's actually getting better at this point. Like maybe we'll get some really good episodes in the end, and it kind of just downgraded back to where we started. I just really wasn't a fan of this episode. That's really it for this non-spoiler section because I want to go into all of the explanations that they messed up and stuff, and I do have some positives too. Not everything in these videos is totally negative, but we're just gonna move right on into what actually happened in the episode. So if you haven't watched episode 6 of Shadowhunters, definitely go watch it, but for now, bye non-spoiler people! I was very confused from the very first scene of this episode, and that's kind of where I was like, oh my god, it's gonna go downhill from here. We start the episode and Luke is like dying and they're in Magnus's lair and Magnus is trying to heal him. So Luke goes into this kind of like dream sequence, but Rune has the circle mark, so I'm like, wait, is this something that happened in the past? I mean, they're clearly not in New York. I'm assuming this is what Idris is supposed to look like. But I don't understand why in a present day dream he would have the circle rune mark. Like, what did that signify? I'm gonna assume that they're hard, but really it looks like a country club. Like, if that's how Idris is gonna be portrayed, like, I don't ever want them to touch City of Glass because that did no justice to what Idris is supposed to look like. Okay, what the fuck is Virgin Shadowhunter energy? I get it was a joke to get Alec to go to Magnus. Like, that was a joke from the beginning. I kind of understood it, but it wasn't very well portrayed. It upset me so much because it was so stupid. Like, if Virgin Shadowhunter energy is a real thing, Clary is right there. She's a virgin and she's a Shadowhunter. If she's not a virgin, who the fuck is she having sex with? Simon? Like, come on, people. That wasn't well thought through. We finally get to see Max, and he totally brightened up this episode for me. He was just so cute. I love his little speech impediment. I love how he gets confused with the runes. I also love how Alec and Izzy act around him. Like, you can just see their morale brighten up despite everything that's going on. They're so happy to see their little brother, and that's how it is in the books, and it just made me really happy. Okay, so I'm actually happier with Magnus in this episode. I'm not totally content with Harry as Magnus yet, but I feel that he was a little more tame, a little more toned down than he was in the previous episode when he was just ridiculously overdramatic and very Jack Sparrow-esque. I think I might have just needed Magnus to call Clary Biscuit to be okay with him. I'm definitely more used to Harry as Magnus in this episode because we saw a lot more of him than we have in the first 4 episodes. I'm not totally satisfied yet because I really want a combination of that overly dramatic Magnus that we saw in episode 5 and the more tame Magnus. I feel like there really needs to be some kind of mesh of those two characters. Magnus is one of the most complex characters in the entire series, and they've made every single character so two-dimensional, and the fact that they're doing it to Magnus Bane really upsets me, but I'm trying to get more used to Harry as Magnus. I'm actually so much happier with Kat McNamara as Clary in this episode. I don't know if it's that Kat's acting has just improved in general, or if the writers are finally grasping on to some little bit of what Clary Frey is actually about. Either way, I just feel like the essence of Clary Frey was really captured in this episode way more than it was in the previous episodes. They just gave her some really great Clary Frey lines that weren't in the books but still managed to capture Clary Frey, and that's a really good thing for Shadowhunters. That's what I really want to see from them. But like 2 examples of this are when she says, I'm an art student, all of my adventures are supposed to be 2-dimensional, Or drawing monsters and demons is one thing, seeing them in real life is another. And then she finally says that she doesn't know what she's doing, and Clary doesn't know what she's doing. They've built her up to be like this badass shadow hunter already that Clary doesn't access until much later in the series, and so we've kind of got that like confused little girl aspect that Clary really shows in City of Bones, and I'm really, really happy about that. Now, as the episodes are going on, I'm getting more used to like every one of these characters. I don't think I'll ever fully accept them as my representation of the Mortal Instruments cast, but the only character that is very static to me is Dom as Jace. I don't want to attribute this to the fact that Jace is my all-time favorite character, but I just feel like everything that has to do with Jace in the show, the writer's lines, Dom's acting, Dom's delivery, like everything about it is so wrong, and it's not changing like the rest of the cast is. I think that scene with Simon and Jace could have been so much better. It was just awkward, like the banter wasn't Jace and Simon banter. It was weird. There wasn't really a point to it. They were just like fighting about Clary, and like it wasn't even like good fighting about Clary where like Jace and Simon do fight about Clary in the books. I didn't like it. In like 6 hours of this TV show, the only emotion I have seen from Dom is when he says, "You don't get to talk about Alec." That's the parabatai relationship I want to see. I don't want this coming out now. That should have been there from the beginning because they've been parabatai for years now. But you know, I'm happy it was there, and it makes me hopeful that there's going to be more emotion and more actual Jace moments for Dom. I just personally felt that that scene was really, really weak. The only part I really enjoyed about it is after Simon like pushes Jace up against the wall, like when he like gets really pissed off, and then Jace is like, "What happened to you at the Demore?" Like he's the only one that has realized that there's something off with Simon after going to the Demore. But just the way that Alberto says nothing, just forget it, you pissed me off. I felt so hard for Simon. Just in that line was enough to say, "I'm confused, I don't know what's happening to me, what is going on?" That was enough, and that's the kind of subtlety that's really powerful that we need from the show. I'm just getting really overwhelmed with just the emotion that Alberto put just in that one line. That's probably like I'm just overanalyzing it, but it was so powerful to me, and it totally captured what Simon is going through at this point in his life, and I want more of that for this show. Another good Clary moment from Kat is when she's talking about how she doesn't understand how Valentine can hate Downworlders so much since all of the Downworlders she's come in contact with have been really nice to her. I mean, except for the werewolves kidnapping her, I don't really understand where that played into that line, but nonetheless, Clary says that in the book. She just doesn't understand Voldemort. What? She doesn't understand Valentine's mindset and how he could possibly think these things, and they included that, and that makes me really happy. One thing I have to mention, and I'm sorry, but City of Glass spoilers are coming, so just mute me until the cover goes away. Why are we revealing that Voldemort... I almost said it again. Oh my god. Why are we revealing that Valentine is jealous of what the Downworlders have, and that's why he's so biased towards them? That is so important in City of Glass. That's why Clary creates the Binding Room, which helps them defeat Valentine in the Mortal War. That's a really important detail that comes in at a specific time. She finds that out from Ithuriel. It's not like a known thing. Everyone just thinks that Valentine is a bigot because he's a bigot. These are where these little details that they don't think matter to change are really affecting the plot. I'm really bothered by the fact that Robert and Isabel have the relationship that Maris and Isabel are supposed to have. Like Robert says, "My favorite thing about coming home from Idris is being able to see you like this and see you smiling," and I'm like, where did that come from? I get it. They've changed the fact that Isabel knows her parents' secret, but that has such an impact on the relationship that she has with her parents, and it's totally ruined now. This whole plan to restore the Lightwood name, not a fan of. This is gonna be a really long rant, so I'm sorry. So the plan for this sacrifice is, firstly, Isabel is gonna wear more conservative clothing. Oh my god, Isabel has to wear functioning clothing. What a sacrifice! I think that whole plot line was really stupid. Isabel's clothing, like, does not define the Lightwoods. Like, if they're trying to present themselves as a better family to the Clave, when Isabel goes to Idris and sees the Clave, she's not gonna be wearing those clothes. She's gonna be in shadow hunting gear and in shadow hunter cloaks. Like, it just doesn't make sense as to why her clothing as a 18-year-old girl is gonna have such an impact on the Lightwood family. Oh my god, it was so stupid. Why on earth did they include that? It was so pointless. But then the other part of the sacrifice is where this whole Lydia Branwell character is coming in, where they're basically going to try and marry off Alec to one of the female, first of all. They're gonna try and marry him off to a female whose family plays like a higher role in the Clave in order to create like a political alliance. Shadowhunters are so serious about love. They don't think about love the same way that humans and mundanes do. While there are people throughout all of the Shadowhunter Chronicles that do fall in love with multiple people, or they might remarry, love is such an intense emotion that we as mundanes don't access. They find love very young, they marry very young, and they stay with that person until they die, basically. Even if you examine those relationships where there's like more than one person involved, there's just so much more to it than like a stereotypical like westernized marriage. I can't think of the exact scene, but it's like a really big thing to Shadowhunters to be in love and to find their true love and to be with their true love. And the fact that they would be okay with an arranged marriage is just so not okay, especially since Maris was so unbelievably in love with Robert. It makes no sense to me that she would take that choice away from her son. I'm really upset about this because it totally takes away such a big Shadowhunters custom. So we have to go back to City of Glass. I'm sorry for those of you who haven't gotten this far in the books, but this episode spoiled a lot for City of Glass, but I'm not going to spoil you for the books any further. So here comes the cover again. Give me until it goes away if you want to still hear my thoughts. They have entirely messed up the betrayal of Jocelyn and Luke to Valentine. Like, completely. In the show, they make it out as this big betrayal that Jocelyn and Luke had an affair while Valentine and Jocelyn were married. I'm gonna get to that later. Don't even get me started on that whole affair thing. But the betrayal in the books is that Jocelyn and Luke team up so that they can warn everyone involved in the Accords, all of the Downworlders, all of the Clave, that Valentine is coming and is going to kill all of them in order to stop the Accords from happening. So the plan was that like the 20 or something Shadowhunters that were in the circle would go into the Accords Hall would erupt in war because everyone's prepared, and then Valentine and all the circle members would die. That's the betrayal. That's freaking epic. And it's just so important to everything that happened after that, with Jocelyn running to New York and Valentine faking his own death, which didn't happen either. Holy shit, they fucked everything up. I can't remember if they even mentioned that because there was nothing in the show or in the flashback to suggest that that's what the betrayal actually was. They just made it as the affair, and it's not the level of intensity that it's supposed to be. When Jace goes, "You don't need compassion when you've got good looks," I audibly said, ew. Such a good opportunity for a Jace line. Potential. Just wasted. So Simon sees himself dead. Like, since when is hallucinations a part of the vampire transformation? No explanation. They never touch upon it again for the rest of the episode. It's just these little bits about Simon are thrown in at really bad times when there's more important things to go on, and they don't even need it. This whole "I need your strength" scene really made me angry too. That scene, that whole concept, comes in at such a significant point in Magnus and Alex's relationship that doesn't happen within the first 4 days of them meeting. I get they start dating pretty quickly, but they don't develop into this actual relationship until much later down the line, when that scene would have been appropriate. It was out of context now, it was out of place. They really need to stop progressing Malik's relationship so quickly because they're gonna ruin it. I don't care that this is like a major ship in the fandom. You can't just ruin the whole backstory behind this relationship to satisfy the fans. There's no thought in the producers and the directors of the show. There's no concept for the future. I'm as angry with Malik as I am with Clary and Jace in this TV show, if that puts it into perspective for you. So we're moving back into the backstory between Jocelyn, Luke, and Valentine, which is like the whole freaking plot of the show. Considering they've already said that Jocelyn and Luke are in love, I'm not going to consider this a spoiler. I'm going to tell you how it actually happened. I'll put the poster up if you don't want to hear it, but you already know that they're in love. They've just really ruined the backstory, so I'm going to explain the backstory. Luke has been in love with Jocelyn since they met, but Jocelyn has been infatuated with Valentine since they met. And so Luke and Valentine were best friends, and so he suppressed his feelings out of respect for Jocelyn and Valentine because he also knew that it was never going to happen. Jocelyn marries Valentine. There's no question about who she's in love with. She never questions it. She never even thinks that Luke is in love with her. That doesn't occur to her. She doesn't recognize her feelings for Luke until that point. And it's so important to the story of Jocelyn and Luke. Like, they're taking every backstory that is put into every relationship and watering it down until it's nothing. Why are they doing this? Come back, non-City of Glass readers. I'm so sorry that took so long, but this episode was literally City of Glass. Clary has the ability to place things in paper. We saw that in episode 1. So why wasn't Clary shocked when it happened in episode 1? I mean, come on, you know you didn't draw a biscotti. You knew you had one that was physical that you could eat, and all of a sudden it's on paper. Why are you just like, that's really weird. I thought I had a biscotti, but I don't remember drawing one. Where's the logic? And yet she freaks out when she does it in front of Luke. It's like, but that's never happened. Like, what's going on? How can I do that? I have to talk about City of Glass again. I'm really sorry, but there are things that I need to talk about that have to do with the books, and I don't want to spoil you guys because I want you to keep reading the books even if you don't like the show. So I'm sorry, City of Glass people, but you have to go away again. So we're talking about how Clary can put things into drawings. And so Luke says some shadow hunters, plural on that, have supernatural, more angelic powers. It's not some shadow hunters, it's 3 characters in the entire span of the book series and the world. And there's a specific reason why it's those 3 people. You might as well make it the fact that they have these powers because of the experiments that Valentine did on their children and his wife, and oh my god, why? Why? There's always a why moment in these discussions because just nothing else can sum up my feelings. The reason that Clary, Jocelyn, Jace, and Sebastian have these powers is because Valentine experimented with them. It's not genetics either. Oh my god. Clary asks if this is a genetic thing, if it runs in families, and Luke says, I think so. It's not genetic just because her mother has the same power and Luke isn't even aware of that. If it was genetic, we would have a line of Fairchilds down the line. Somebody would have noticed that this is a thing that's happened before. And then also, if it's genetic, where did it come from with Jace and Sebastian? It just... The only way I can compare it to is HIV. HIV is not genetic. It can be passed through a multitude of ways, but one of the ways, the one that's relevant to what I'm actually talking about, is through birth. The mother has it, and so it's passed through the child, through the blood, while she's pregnant with the child. Valentine gives Jocelyn the angelic powder to get her out of the depression after experimenting on her first child. And so because it is in Jocelyn's system, artificially, it wasn't there before, Valentine put it in her body artificially. It goes through her blood into Clary because she's currently getting all of her nutrients from Jocelyn. That's how it works. There's no genetic pathway there. I'm done talking about this because I've gone on about it way too long. But they've changed a lot of little details that are messing up everything about the story, and I've never been more upset with the decisions from Shadowhunters than I am in this episode. Where would I rate this episode on the scale? I'm still kind of feeling that episode 4 was the best. I'm going to go with episode 5 next. I'm going to go with episode 2. Then I'm going to go with episode 6. Then I'm going to go with episode 1. And then I'm going to go with episode 3. Was that all of them? That's it for my discussion on episode 6 of Shadowhunters. As always, leave your comments below. I've noticed a lot of people have the same opinions with me on this episode, which makes me very happy because it makes me feel that I'm not alone. So if you're upset about the same things as me, because I'm very analytical about these books, and when they mess up one thing, it messes up everything else, it's a domino effect. So if you're upset by these domino effects that they're causing, please let me know to make sure I'm not crazy. I think it's almost pretty unanimous that this was not the best episode that Shadowhunters has put out so far, so I don't know how I'm feeling going into next week, but I'd love to know what you guys think. So that is it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you soon for a new one. Bye!